Hello folks, this is Sula speaking. You're listening to a report on the alternate histories for Game 2 of Civ4 AI Survivor Season number 8. Now, we do not have an AI Survivor game this week. It is the July 4th weekend. I have family coming in out of town, so there is no live stream. I'm going to be posting this on the Friday that we would normally do this, but I'm recording it in advance. So what we want to do, so we still have some content this week, is look at the alternate histories from the next game in order, and that was game number 2. Now, I was not the one who ran these alternate histories. These were ran by Oops, I Forgot, so please give all credit to Oops for doing this. He ran the alternate histories. He also typed up the report. There's a written version of this that will be linked underneath the video if you want to go check out the written version. So we're going to take a quick look at the data that Oops provided. If you're new to this concept, what happens is after we do all the AI Survivor games, or in this case during the season when there's a week where there's not anything going on, is we go back and we replay the map 20 more times and we try to see what would happen. So in other words, was the game that we watched typical? Would it play out the same way? How does the map play out repeatedly? Like, are there really wonky things that cause the game we saw to go in weird directions? Game 1, a perfect example of that. In Game 1, Hammurabi won, and he actually never even came close to winning the other 20 times. So that was a wacky outlier result. So the question here, Game 2, was this an outlier result? And I will let you guys determine this. We're going to go through the results of these 20 games. So here are the screenshots that Oops provided here. So game repeat of the map 1, we have a Gilgamesh domination victory, Justinian diplomatic victory, a Justinian domination victory, a Justinian spaceship victory, a Gilgamesh domination victory, a Justinian cultural victory. I'm starting to sense a pattern here in the alternate histories. A Justinian space race victory, another Justinian space race victory, a Gilgamesh domination victory. These Justinian and Gilgamesh chaps, they seem to have done rather well in the repeat histories as well as the game we watched. And then we see a little wonkiness here. There's a Bismarck victory, another Justinian victory, another Justinian victory, a Gilgamesh victory. This is the true outlier result, a Wang Khan spaceship victory with Catherine in second place. As we'll see, this was the really, really bonkers result that was in the alternate histories. And then another Gilgamesh win, another Gilgamesh win, another Justinian win, another Gilgamesh win, another Justinian win, and another Justinian win. So if we want to summarize that, let me pull up the spreadsheet. By the way, this will be linked on the written report if you want to take a look at the spreadsheet. Here's all the winners. And you might notice it's all Gilgamesh and Justinian aside from one Bismarck game and one Wang Khan game. And these were definitely outlier results. So we have the full data worth of the full table full of data here, if I can avoid tripping over my tongue. Basically, this was the story of two leaders, Justinian and Gilgamesh. And they were the two strongest leaders in the game that we watched on live stream. And lo and behold, they were the two strongest leaders on pretty much every other replay of this map. They took almost all of the victories. They took 18 out of the 20 victories combined. And I think they took almost all the second place. It wasn't quite as much the runner-up ones, but they still took an awful lot of them. So here's the overall table. 55% of the time Justinian won, that's 11 wins, and Gilgamesh had another 7 wins, so that's 18 between the two of them. They're basically never first to die. Look at their survival rates compared to everybody else. 80%, 75%. No one else could even crack 50%. Their finish point, they had 100 finish points between the two of them. That's for first or second place finishes. And the rest of the field had 30 to their 100. I mean, it's like it's not even close. So again, I did not watch these games, but I did read the report. I converted it into HTML and put it up on the website that Oops provided for us. So things that Oops mentioned when he watched the replay. Justinian was very dominant. Justinian was pretty clearly the strongest leader on this map. Gilgamesh was close, but Justinian was better. He did a really good job of doing what we saw on live stream. He spread his religion. He made allies. He was really good at claiming contested land. He put his holy city in the same spot in every game. His starting free deity settler went to, I believe it was to the southwest in every single game, and it always became a holy city, and it always just dominated the area culturally. So he was just always really strong, and the fact that he does not declare war at pleased seemed like it helped him on this map. Sometimes that hurts him, but it seemed like it definitely helped him here. So, I mean, what we saw in the game that we watched was pretty much what tended to happen. Justinian was the strongest AI. He avoided fighting too many wars. He kind of like picked the correct number of wars, and he was really strong in game after game. Gilgamesh, he was actually stronger in the alternate histories, and I kind of suspected that might be the case. The game that we watched on livestream was apparently one of the weaker Gilgamesh performances. So in the game that we watched on livestream, Gilgamesh was thrown off because he got attacked by Genghis Khan early on, and apparently that almost never happened in the alternate histories. So Gilgamesh had an early 1v2 where he had to fight both Genghis Khan and also against Wang Khan, and that just didn't happen in most of the other games. According to Oops, what typically happened is Gilgamesh would 1v1 against Wang Khan. He actually often was able to make a friend out of Genghis Khan. And Gilgamesh had more territory and better territory, so he would tend to win the 1v1 against Wang Khan. So a bunch of his victories came from defeating Wang Khan and then snowballing off him into first place from there. In games where that didn't happen, he tended to finish second behind Justinian. But he was actually stronger than what we saw, and stronger most of the time in these other games. Because he didn't get into a two-front war early on. The other leaders, all of them were not very good on this map. It really was the top two and then like a massive gulf to everybody else. Wang Khan was actually the best of the other leaders, and the way that Oops described it was he was actually reasonably strong on these maps. He always settled towards Gilgamesh out of the gates. He was able to claim a decent amount of land. He does have financial trait, and he did have a nice river that ran through a decent portion of his territory. So Wang Khan himself was not that weak, but the problem was Gilgamesh was stronger, and because he had the highest piece weight in the field, he tended to get dogpiled a lot. He actually had one game that he did manage to win. He actually scored 9 points in that game. It's this one here, game number 14. He won and had 4 kills. So 9 of his 19 points came from a single game, which is pretty wacky. Yeah, I mean, basically just the diplomacy was against him. He got dogpiled a lot. I mean, look at this, 26. He started 26 wars. He got attacked 49 times. That's not what you want to see. Not what you want to see. That meant he got attacked an awful lot. So that's why he got eliminated 80% of the time. But in the 4 games where he didn't get eliminated, he actually had 2 second places and a first place. So the potential was there, but the map was just too against him diplomatically, unfortunately. Now, amongst the other leaders, Bismarck, a lot of people thought that Bismarck might do well in the alternate histories. It was floated that he might win like maybe 3, 4, 5 games in the alternate histories. That was not the case. Basically, his economy was just too weak. He was off to a very slow economic start in the game we watched on live stream. He was kind of able to recover from that over time, but that was a characteristic in the alternate histories as well. He also tended to pick a lot of wars with Tokugawa, and it was kind of rare that either one decisively beat the other. They both just kind of fought a lot, and then their wars just kind of stalled out and went nowhere. So like imagine Bismarck in the game we watched, but in the game we watched, he like had this successful conquest of Genghis Khan. Most of the games he just kind of stalled out and didn't really do anything. He had the one game where he won by domination, which was what? Game number, this one here, game number 10. But like that was a clear outlier result, and he just was not very strong. So he probably was a lot weaker in the alternate histories than what we saw on live stream. Tokugawa, he did a little bit better in the alternate histories. He was actually kind of hurt in the game we watched because he founded the second religion. Justinian got the first one, he got the second. And then Justinian spread his religion to everybody else, and Toku got left with the religion that no one else practiced. That did not happen very often. In fact, it tended to be pretty random who got the second religion. I think that Oops said that every single one of the leaders got the second religion at one point in time, including Justinian getting both of the first 2 religions in one of the games, which is pretty wild. So Toku a little bit stronger, but just his econ was too bad. He just didn't have any economic heft in this game, and he spent a lot of time fighting Bismarck and not really making a lot of progress. So he was able to hold on. I mean, he was only first to die 1 time out of 20, so him being first to die was pretty uncommon. That at least was unlikely, but otherwise he was pretty irrelevant in this game with the impression I had. Similar story for Catherine. She just didn't really have the land to hang in there. She survived a decent amount of the time. She had about 50% survival rate, but she just didn't really have the land to be competitive. She typically settled right towards Genghis Khan in game after game, and she actually fought Genghis Khan more than anybody else. Those two didn't really fight a lot in the game we saw on live stream. They did eventually in the late game, but apparently they usually fought in the early game, and typically the two of them just kind of stalled out and went nowhere with their wars. But she did not have a particularly great starting position, and she didn't really do a whole lot with it, other than survive about half the time. And then finally, Genghis Khan Temujin. 0% winner, 0% runner-up. Now, when we did the fantasy contest, he actually attracted some pretty big bids. I believe Grillo ended up with him on his fantasy team, and I think Amika Lola was also bidding pretty heavily, because there was a perception that this might be his year. He had a really strong starting position, and the perception was he might actually be pretty strong on this map. But it turns out, no, he was not that strong. His capital was good, but everything outside the capital was not that great. And what we had all overlooked on this map was Cathy settled right towards him in every game, and he actually got crunched pretty badly on territory. He had Catherine settling towards him, and then Gilgamesh also settling towards him. He was pinned between 2 creative leaders. Genghis Khan ignored mysticism trait in game after game after game, so he had no culture, and the creative leaders just squeezed him really badly. And then he's just suicidally aggressive. He fights way too many wars. If you look at the data here, he started 50 wars. That was more wars than anyone other than Gilgamesh. And as Oops put it in his report, that was a particularly high war total considering that he was dead much of the time in these games. You can't declare war if you're dead, and he was gone by turn 200 a lot of the time. So it's honestly shocking he was able to get to 50 wars. But we know what his personality is. This is a flawed personality for AI Survivor. He's just too aggressive. He doesn't build an economy. He starts wars he can't finish. And I mean, yeah, this is the result. 90% elimination rate, 0 first or second finishes. Woof. And we thought this might be the game he would break through, but it was not the game that he broke through. Very emphatically not the game that he broke through. So buyer beware for future seasons with this guy. He really does not seem to have it. Well, anyway, I hope that that's an interesting look back at this game. As I said, there's more in the written report if you want to go check it out. As a quick summary, sometimes we find out that the games we saw on stream were like really weird outlier results, like game 1. But sometimes we get confirmation that we actually did watch a pretty common game. And this game was more or less played out the way you would expect to, because Justinian finished first, Gilgamesh finished second. It was a pretty typical game as far as things play out. And it is kind of nice sometimes when the alternate histories confirm that, hey, you know what? These maps do sometimes play out in a typical fashion, and we actually got that game on live stream. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope everybody has a great weekend. We will be back with more AI Survivor content next week on this next Friday with game number 5. Until then, take care, folks. Have a good one. Thanks again to Oops for providing this, and I'll see you next week. See you then, folks.